Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for being here. I've been mayor for 15 years and a lot of times you do end up doing repetitive stuff over and over every year, and today we're doing something that I have never done, and that's opening a time capsule that is over 100 years old. And we're documenting this for archival purposes so that when we open the box, I want to provide you some background information. In 1911, the Daughters of the Confederacy installed a Confederate statue named Johnny Reb on Magnolia Avenue. And in 1917, the statue moved to the east side of Lake Eola Park. On May the 15th of this year, we announced that the city would be relocating the statue to a more appropriate location in the Confederate section of Greenwood Cemetery, which is owned by the city of Orlando. The relocation began on June the 20th of this year, and as the statue was disassembled, crews discovered this box, which was reported by some to be a time capsule. And we've been holding it in storage until we were able to open it in a manner that we could securely preserve whatever is inside it. Today is August the 8th, 2017, and we are opening the time capsule. I don't think any of our commissioners are with us this morning. If they are, can you raise your hand? Okay. Rich Grabe and Brian Haynes are our official city locksmiths. They are from City Facilities, and they will unlock the box. And then Richard Forbes, the city's Historic Preservation Officer, and Heather Barnes from our Historic Preservation Office will remove the contents and place them in archival material for preservation. I'm going to turn it over to Rich and Brian at this point.
Feel free to talk too if you want.
You guys want to describe what you're doing as you're doing it?
Yes. This is on the lock here. It's an old style mortise lock, which I brought a small example over here. I was poking and prodding inside the lock. There are no moving pieces in there. I am able to get a skeleton key, and the skeleton key goes 360, so that tells me there is nothing for the key to latch onto, even if we had an existing key. So at this point, what I'm going to try to do is keep the drill holes small in here so I can determine where the rods are inside to drill them out, and hopefully to unlock this box. So we will attempt to do this right now. Brian, have you a little pressure on that? Okay. Looks like I'm going to need a bigger bit. There is a secondary wall inside here.
We wanted to keep the suspense going for a little while. The lock. Okay. And I will turn it over to you. Right.
balance out.
Okay.
Rich.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
We found one piece that was on top of the box, which was a painting or a photographic image of a painting. So I just wanted to show that to the group. This is the remains of what was probably a print of a famous painting. And all we have left of it, all that was legible or visible, was this, which was probably the title piece underneath the print. It reads, General R. E. Lee on Traveler, Lexington, Virginia, 1868, from the life-size oil painting by Mrs. L. Kirby Parrish of Nashville, Tennessee. We have tried to find that painting, but have not been able to do so. So, that was the condition of what was on top of the box.
Wait, Heather, she's finishing.
You could probably leave that on the edge.
And we can take pictures of it afterward too.
Extra gloves. So unfortunately there is a hole in the top of the box where it rusted through. Let's take a look. Get a little closer. Right, so I'm not going to tilt it too much. There's quite a bit of debris in here. You can see it looks like the remains of a flag. And as we understand, if it was a silk and wool flag, that's what's left, where the bugs have eaten it up. So we're going to put some of these pieces, which are obviously very fragile. There's Confederate money appears. In very fragile condition. Less fragile is a letter or some type of sealed names of members. I can't quite read the writing. Dated February 15th, 1911.
Watch the
Confederate money.
yeah, watch the currency there.
That's probably going to need to go in between pieces of paper. Rosters of the chapter. Let's get straight into This is minutes of the 15th Annual Convention of the Florida Division, United Daughters of the Confederacy, held in Ocala, Florida, May 4, 5, 6, and 7, 1910. Not entirely sure what this is. It says Annie Coleman chapter, Orlando, Florida, some type of, this may need to just go 8, because I don't think we're going to be able to see this one yet. Very small flag. Next is a newspaper. The termite wings, debris from what was that flag, I believe is what all that dust is in there. Didn't say it would be neat. Okay.
Is there a date listed on the paper?
Oh yeah, sorry. That's for the.
What's the headline?
Okay. South Florida Sentinel, Thursday, February 9th, 1911. Chicken and waffles, Thursday night attractions, Hotel Altamont. Larger and better than a circus. I think this just happens to be from the day that the monument was dedicated. We have that on the file.
Did that just determine our city dish?
Chicken and
Possibly.
waffles.
Yeah.
All right. Additional Daily Reporter. Bad health causes George A. Palmer of Merrimack, New Hampshire to drown himself in Lake Eola.
Oh, wow.
That's the kind of headline we had back in February 14th, 1911. I'm sure these may have some relevance, but I'm not going to open them right now because it would probably break.
Yeah.
This is the Orange Chautauqua, February 14th, 1911. It's talking about the Great Orange County Fair is coming into town. That belongs to that small flag, I believe. So, type of lapel pin says 1861 to 1865. And there appears to be a second one. No markings on that one. As you can see, the remains in here are primarily the dust from that, what was probably a flag. And that is the contents.
anything stand out to you of significance?
You know, it'll all take a little time to see maybe what's in the newspaper, the reasoning. That envelope could perhaps has a roster, I believe, in it, or it has a list. There you have it.
I think, Richard, one thing, I'm surprised there's so much that's intact here. I was anticipating that there would simply be a box full of dust.
Yes, I am surprised that the newspapers and that booklet are in as good a condition as they are. I'm surprised the money is not in better condition, because usually that was on a higher quality paper.
We can take a few questions and then we can allow, so you guys can take videos of it, or, you know, photos of it.
Tell us a little bit about the next steps. What's the process in trying to recover what's left?
Well, we will probably work with the History Center at some point to really archive this and put it, you know, clearly it's very fragile, so we're not going to be opening them up and reading them at this point, but that would be the next steps, I would imagine.
You're touching history. What is going through your heart, honestly?
Well, it's very exciting after all these years to open this box and see what's inside of it. I mean, I know it's a lot of historic information here, and glad we were able to take a look inside. Mayor?
Can you help us with the time frame? I guess the original, spot was not at Lake Eola, so it was actually made in 1910-ish, 11.
1911. It was in the middle of Maine and Central, which is now Magnolia and Central. It was deemed a traffic hazard in 1917 and was moved to the park, according to the history books that we have. We do, I believe in the file we have a copy of the dedication. It's right there on the top.
And also, Greg, we didn't know for sure whether the time capsule was placed when it was first installed or when it was moved to Lake Eola, but based on the dates of the documents that are inside, it would indicate that it was at the first installation.
Yeah.
And possibly, well, it's interesting. We've got a 1911 date that this took place the first time around. According to Bacon's history book, it's 1917 when it gets moved, but we had something here from well, they're all from 1911. So that tells us that when they moved the monument, they moved everything all in place and put the box. They didn't like open it up and put anything more in, because there's nothing from anything after that date, I think.
Mayor Dyer, there's been a little bit of a legal tug of war over the time capsule. Has that been resolved, and if so, who owns the time capsule?
We've never been served with any type of lawsuit. I've read in the paper or seen in the news that there might be one, but there's been no official service of process or anything else. So I'm unaware of the particulars of any lawsuit, and at this point, the City of Orlando owns the documents. I assume that in the future we will donate them to the History Center.
Can you tell us, Mayor, when we see items like this that help us to tell the story of Orlando, how important is that for you and for the citizens of Orlando?
Well, I think it's always interesting and intellectually interesting when you have a time capsule to see what the individuals that placed it there would have deemed appropriate to put into the time capsule. In this case, I had no idea what was in the capsule, and like I said, I thought it was all going to be dust this morning. So there's certainly going to be documentation, I would believe, in this the notes from the annual meeting. There's probably some discussion about placing the time capsule when we get into that, and then a roster of the members of the Daughters of Confederacy that put it there. So I would assume that there would be a lot of names that we probably know that are probably streets in downtown Orlando, a lot of surnames there. And then it would be interesting to read all of those newspapers and understand why somebody drowned themselves in Lake Eola over his health conditions. And then, right, chicken and waffles may end up being our signature dish. It was in 1911, apparently.
Mayor, going back to the dispute of who may own it or not, do you know if the city was sent a letter this morning asking for the time capsule to not dispute opened? Is my understanding that someone on behalf of the Daughters of Confederacy sent the city the letter this morning?
I don't know anything about that. What I do know is we've owned that statue in the park for a long time, and we deemed it appropriate to preserve the documentation and to do it in this fashion so everybody saw exactly what was in the capsule and that there could be no issue about what was in it or not in it. And you can take pictures of everything that was in there.
But we can check and see.
Yeah, and just if you read the program for the unveiling, it very specifically talks about turning over to the city the statue and its contents. It talks about acceptance of care and custody of the monument by the city. So apparently from this it appears it was given to the city.
Can you tell us Orlando's significance during this time? Were we split here with Confederate and North and South? If you can give me a little bit more of Orlando's.
I am not a scholar of the Civil War history here in Central Florida, but there are people that are at the University of Central Florida. I would leave that type of, I would not speculate.
Do I see Don Price in the back there? So after this is over, Don Price is our sexton, and probably he takes care of the cemetery and would be our city historian as such. Has a lot of great information about the city and the history of the city. We're moving Johnny Reb to the Confederate section of the Greenwood Cemetery. There's a Union section also, but I hadn't really thought about this till I was over there. It isn't individuals that actually died during the war. They're all veterans that died after the war and were buried in Greenwood. So some were Union that moved down here afterwards, and some were Confederate. So I think the city at that point was obviously in the Confederacy, but people from the North moved to Orlando subsequent to that. Don, you available afterwards for people?
One more question?
I have a question for Mr. Forbes. Do you, when we see items like this to help us piece together a little bit of what Orlando was at different periods in time, how helpful is that in us establishing our roots and continuing to grow those roots when we see history like this, even though it appears to be a small box with just a few items in it?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's going to take some time to sort of sift through this and see what it means. I mean, if you're also looking at a broad kind of period of history throughout the South. These types of monuments were going up in the early 1900s all across the South. So in scholarly research, which I'm not the expert in, but I've read up on quite a bit of it, and I think this kind of ties in with that whole genre of monuments going up throughout the late 19th and early 20th century.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
If you guys want to get video of it, just obviously be cautious of, yeah.
And hey, Greg, I've counted the money, so don't take any.
Oh, yeah.
What was your count?
I'll split the $10.
I didn't count it.
It's probably worth more today than it was then.
Yeah, probably.
It's surprising that the money.
Yeah, I would have thought that too. Of course, as part of the stock of the Confederate money may not have been the same.
If you enjoyed today's video and would like to see more content like this, be sure to take a shot at the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest BirdDogg content. And if you'd like to support the channel, for a limited time there's exclusive Civil War Diaries merchandise available in the video link below.